So this chapter is on interest. And when I say interest, I mean basically the idea of interest is that it's an amount of money that's gaining. So again, it's usually percentage based, but if I deposit some money into a bank somehow, and that money gains value, then it's gaining what's called interest. So it's the amount that is gained on money you deposit or put in somewhere, whether that be in a bank or a stock or a lot of things. In fact, interest shows up in quite a lot of things. Banking ideas like savings accounts and CDs. By the way, I might talk about more what kind of things these are, but stock markets, it also works for. And these first three are kind of ones you typically think of as a consumer. You put money in there and they gain a certain amount of interest. Okay? And there's slight differences between savings accounts and CDs and stock markets. And we'll get into some of that later. But it turns up also on the opposite end. Whenever the bank is loaning me money, whether that be through credit cards, through mortgages, through car loans, any type of loan situation, interest is actually being applied there as well. So we're going to do some basic calculations. So if we start with $1,000 in some account and they make 5% interest, then what's going to happen? How much do they actually make? Well, similar to how things worked in the previous chapter, 5% interest, whoops, well that's bad, 0.05, multiply that times 1,000, 0.05 times 1,000 and on my calculator, and you see that that person would have made $50, my writing's bad today, in interest. And how much did they make in the account in a year? Well, basically think of, or how much did they make is the $50. How much is in the account? Well, I could have added this. You got 1,050. I could have also said how much is in the account is going to be 105% of my original. So 105% of your original is equal to 1,050. And the same thing goes with really ugly numbers. We're going to have to round sometimes and so on and so forth. So how much do they make? 5% of $342.85. That's what we said we deposit in some account. And when you multiply this, you're going to have to round slightly, but it comes out to $17.14. And similarly, how much is in the account after a year? Well, you could have either added the $17.14 to the original $342.85, or you can take 105% of your original. I tend to like thinking of things as 100 and certain percent of the original. And we'll see some interesting aspects of that too. All right. And in this case, I got $359.99. $359.99. So we can see that the interest is actually the same as the tax calculations. This says reverse, but it's really the same. I don't know why I didn't fix that. It should be pluses right there. I don't know why I did that. So in the sales tax, you're taking the original and adding on some taxes. Same thing here. We're taking the original amount you put in, adding on some interest. And just like in the previous case, it's really nice to think about this as 1 plus the percentage, I'm going to call that your rate, times the original. Being your final amount. So really, sales tax and interest work in very similar ideas. Now, if this was income tax, then you'd have minus taxes. But since I said sales tax, then it is plus the taxes. So it works in the exact same way. Now, one thing I do want to mention, and I'll get into this earlier, this is the basic interest formula, where we take our 1 plus our percentage times our original. We're going to get into more complicated things in just a moment.